When I grew up in this area, there was always sort of the sense that we were, I don't know, not really in sync. We were outside of what was going on. I don't know if that's still true today. I suspect it is. I'm going to guess that as you go towards Orange County and LA and all of those places, that there's a sense that that's much more central to what's happening now. And so I grew up here, and I grew up here sort of a lot of times with the idea of when will they let me out? You could walk into any room in high school or college. I went to Riverside City College for a year. And one of the main topics that we discussed was how soon and when did we get to leave? That was one of the things we talked about a lot. And what happened is that over time, I was a kid just like you are. In other words, I sat in these same rooms, I took these same classes, and I always had the feeling that somehow a kid from Norco, Corona, Inland Empire might not be, as up to snuff or with the same horsepower because, these other kids are going to fancy schools in LA and they're getting all these opportunities and, frankly, I'm stuck out in the orange groves. So at the time we had orange groves, that was back then. So what I wanted to just impress upon everybody and what I want you to understand is that the reason I do what I do today is because of the stories that I live here in this little place that we all come from. And what I think we miss living here is the power of the kinds of stories that come from places like this. When you go other places, they have different flavors, they have different ways that they are. But if you're from Corona or Norco or the Inland Empire, I remember the Orange County guys used to come out and play baseball against us, and you could always tell they were coming because they had really nice uniforms and they were all clean and everything, and they actually had better athletes than we had most of the time. But we always beat them. And I would always chuckle because there was a secret to why we did that. And if you lined us all up, what made us different was, our uniforms didn't fit all that well. We had dirt, that kind of a thing, But we worked harder. We played harder. We played for keeps. That was our style. Our style of being from here was that we knew how to work. So we might not have been the best athlete. We might not have had the best of everything that there was to have. But there was one thing that you would never do, and that would be outplay or outwork a kid from this neck of the woods. That was just how that was. And we were very proud of that particular fact as kids. We'd see those guys come in on that nice shiny bus, to Houston Park or to one of the places, and we had rocks and dirt and all the rest of it, but we knew we were going to win because we would outplay them, outwork them, we would do whatever we could because it was just how we were. That's the kind of people we are. So, just to give a little kudos, I told you the schools I went to. In my lifetime, I never wrote a thing. And then I decided that it come time, I'd been in the leadership world and the corporate world for a long time, and I said, I'm going to write a book. And what I want to tell people is that the compelling stories inside of them, those stories are what make great leaders. And it doesn't matter, where those stories are from. So people go and they listen to people to get inspiration. You don't get inspiration from other people. That's crap. The inspiration's inside of you, right? And the stories that you already have and you already live today, they will create incredible outcomes if you'll stop and actually pay attention to them. And that's what I spend all of my time telling the great people that run the largest companies in our country. I just got finished putting together a curriculum for leadership. It's called Executive Acumen and Financial Fluency. It's all based on telling stories in a way that are compelling so that people will spend money on things. And that's how companies figure out how to spend money. So storytelling is the basic of why people would spend a lot of money. And they have people like me come in and teach folks how to tell stories. This company I did it for is the largest apparel company in the country. They do $12 billion a year and have 56,000 employees. And guess what stories I'm telling them? Think about it for a minute. I'm telling them what it's like to walk down a little gulch in Corona and climb up a tree and tear some mistletoe off and stick it in baggies and sell it at Christmas time. Because that's the kind of stuff we did around here, right? That was sort of being from here. We saw something, we figured out we could do something with it, and we did. And those are the stories from our little area here. Now it's no longer an agricultural village like it was, back in the 60s. But you guys are in the midst of an incredible generation. I come from the generation of the 60s. You know, we had the Beatles and they were going to India, and, you know, we had the war and peace things and people were marching. And so I grew up in a time, it was pretty exciting. There was a lot going on. And right now, when I look at what's going on in our world, I see that we're doing the same thing. We're in the midst of a lot of change. And so when I sit and I look, you know, the Muslim group, I mean, that's a big issue in our world today. How is a group that hasn't located itself in our world, or we weren't aware of, or a lot of people aren't aware of, how's that going to happen? What's that struggle look like? What's it feel like? What's it feel like to be as American as anyone else, and yet to have a Muslim tradition? And how do you put that together exactly? You know, when somebody says, well, that's a little weird, how do you explain it? How do you talk about it? How do you grapple with it in your own life? What's that look like? So those things that are going on right now, those are your stories. And so really what I'm here to talk about a little bit is just to say, those stories matter. They matter now. The stories that you guys are living today are important. They're really important. People are going to come back and ask you about those. That's how they're going to measure who you are, whatever you do.